Welcome back, Eternal Dragon here with my latest build, and I am super stoked about this one, folks. It's Amara. I managed to, in my opinion, fight me, bring back Amara from Borderlands 3, and here she is, ported lovingly over to Wonderlands. So, what do we got going on here? Let's take a look. First of all, we've managed to get ourselves a Stab-O-Matic of the Deep. Folks, this is the Face Puncher. If you played Borderlands 3, this is the Face Puncher. Of course, it has some minor restrictions, just based on things that I think were a little bit too overpowered with the Face Puncher. But it's a fairly balanced laugh gun that we are going to do an insane amount of damage with. And what are we running over here? Over in our melee slot, it is a Spellblade. That is, of course, because part of how we are going to channel an insane amount of damage here is with a Paradigm. So I'll go over the weapons otherwise. We have a Live Wire, of course. This is just for if you do happen to run low on shotgun damage, you can run around swinging. And because we have put Vampire over here onto our Spellblade, that means that we're going to be getting back a lot of life and a lot of shield as you're running around swinging. Every time you hit, you see you're going to get 10% of your maximum ward and health back, and you can swing really, really quickly with the Spellblade here. And then all of your damage will chain around to other enemies in the area because of the Live Wire. We've also enchanted it with On Reload. Your next melee hit creates a Singularity. It's actually a really, really fun enchantment if you haven't tried it. It creates a Singularity that actually does just about as much damage as your initial melee swing. So you're getting like ×2 damage with your melee swing, and it pulls enemies in, which it makes a lot easier if you switch back over to the Stab-O-Matic just to clear them all up. Right here we have a Scalawag. Now this is actually to buff our Stab-O-Matic for cases when your standard damage isn't quite going to cut it. We're talking raid bossing, we're talking the new variant buffed Parasite. If you didn't know, Parasite's different, Parasite's thicker. So anything that you feel like you need to debuff, this isn't a debuff, this is actually an amplified damage, but you know, it functions about the same way when you use it. And then the same thing for this. I just like the Scalawag better myself, but hey, you know, you can do the same thing with the Crossbolt, and you'll see you get the 4% melee damage boost over 6 seconds here, where it's only 3 over 5 here, but I just personally happen to like this one better. So what did I mean about the Paradigm and the Spellblade? Well, the Spellblade doesn't quite do what it actually says. It says, if you take a look at Spellblade, melee attacks deal spell damage instead of melee damage. Melee attacks increase spell critical chance, blah blah blah. Well, it's actually that all of your melee damage is being turned into spell damage. And so you're actually getting all your melee buffs and all of your spell buffs. So you get a lot of melee damage out of this if you've increased both melee and spell. But with something like a Paradigm here, where your spell is already going back into your melee damage, you see we got a really, really great Paradigm. It has +3 awe on it, 49 spell damage, all damage dealt, melee crit chance. So that spell and all damage are going down into your spell damage, which is going back up to your melee damage, feeding it there. And then you're also feeding spell into melee here, and melee into spell first. So you end up doing a lot of melee damage, which we are able to apply at range with the Stab-O-Matic. Now, another really interesting part of the Stab-O-Matic is that it applies all of your elements to each pellet that it shoots individually. So the more elements you can stack up on your character, actually the more damage you can amplify almost right away, just by getting a totally different element stacked on top of the elements that you're currently doing, and it'll do about the same damage as any of the other elements that you're doing just by appearing there. So we are taking advantage of that fact. We are adding fire here, which will be triggering awe for us over in our skill tree, and we'll go over that in a second. And then additionally, we are going to be using a trick here where you can shoot almost infinitely. Pretty much every time you connect with the gun, because it is a ×14, you will instantly reload your ammunition. Now, of course, you can run out of ammunition if you're not careful, but I mean, it doesn't, you know, usually, it's not a big problem for you in most cases, because guess what? Everything's dead. So, if everything's dead, that's okay. You can go get more ammunition somewhere else, you know? No big deal. So we are using a bad egg so that when your shield is down, and we are going to keep our shield down with our spell weaving skills, our spell shot skills, you will be getting your dark magic damage here, which will help to keep your life full. And then over here on our rings, we've gone primordial rings with spell damage. These were the best ones that I could get. We have additional action skill duration for your hammer to stay out, or if you decide to use polymorph. And then more dark magic efficiency here. Lots of spell critical hit chance. And like I said, the gun damage here unfortunately doesn't really matter much, but the spell shot power really matters. And that's why we wanted to spell shot power here as well. You'll see why over in the spell shot tree when we look at spell weaving. And like I said, we're using a Buffmeister here. Now, we have a few other Buffmeisters on the build that you can kind of run through, whichever of the elements you feel like adding at the time. When I go double Buffmeister, I like to add this one myself. It increases melee damage, and it'll add the poison damage, and I don't know, altogether the poison damage, plus the fire damage, plus your kinetic damage. And then over here, because we are a Clawbringer, we will be getting the bonus lightning damage. All of those being amplified by your elemental damage boosts here. And this is just for extra damage reduction because we'll be running with our shield down. So overall, what we are doing is using spell into melee, into spell to buff the absolute heck out of the Stab-O-Matic, and you will see that you get a lot of procs for 2, 3, 400,000 damage all at the same time, easily breaking 1,000,000 damage per shot, but it is broken up over a few elements. So, what else does Amara do? Well, Amara also has Phase Cast. Gotta love Phase Cast. Amara also, with Polymorph, has the ability to use Phase Grasp. Of course, I don't have a mob in here, but we've all seen Polymorph. Just think of it as your Phase Grasp, and the way that you can even ricochet spells off of it is very, very reminiscent of Ties That Bind. So if you want to, if you've got a different spell that you really, really have a crush on, with this particular build, you could then equip Polymorph and that spell instead of the Buffmeister, and then you'll get a bunch of copies of that spell happening every time you shoot your little skeep friend that you create with Polymorph. Finally, we also do use Ambihextrous when we are raid bossing, because I like to add at least one more elemental type just for that extra damage, get things done really, really quick. And so that covers the gear and sort of how to use the character there. I mean, if you've used Amara, the whole idea is just go nuts, crazy melee damage, blast them in the face with the shotgun. But what we are doing over here in the skills, like I said, so we've got Storm Dragon's Judgment as Phase Cast, we have Polymorph as Phase Grasp, and then this is for raid bossing to add one more element. Going down the skill tree in Clawbringer, 5 out of 5 over here in Oath of Thunder to add a bunch of bonus lightning damage whenever you deal melee. That will apply instantly every single time you fire your Stab-O-Matic and deal damage. Then, like I said here, boosting your elemental damage overall here. And this is for your damage reduction. This is, of course, Amara's Remnant Orbs. They're not quite as powerful as they were in Borderlands 3, but they're super duper fun to have. And then over to the Spellweaving tree. Now, this is where we were talking about that spell shot power. Having it at 99%, you see we are actually getting 99% additional spell damage per stack of spell weaving. That is going to be just crazy over the top damage for us. So we're going to go 3 out of 3 magic bullets. It was changed in how it works recently, but we are getting a ton of damage out of it because we are also using 3 out of 3 double knot to bonus these two things together. And then getting 3 out of 3 awe over on this side with our armor. And awe is, of course, triggered when you do fire and lightning damage critically. So we're going to be doing a lot of critical hits with this build. And then with the fire damage here, you see we're actually going to start really, really increasing the overall damage that our elements can do as well yet again. And then our critical chance goes up when we're dealing lightning damage, which is really at all times. So basically, you start critting almost right away, and then your damage fires up through the roof. So back over onto this side, we are using Mage Armor to keep our shield down, so that we have the biggest bonus coming off of the bad egg. Now, we do have other shields on here that you can mess around with. This is super duper fun, the Hammer and Anvil. If you want to just go crazy with your lightning damage, we've got an Ancient Deity, super great there. This one dropped, it's got nothing on it yet. This is if you want to do that double damage thing, but it feels so old hat by now. That's what everybody's done already, so we're going for something else. And then a body rune if you want to be getting your fire damage from here instead of getting dark magic damage from here. And then, you could run a different Buffmeister here. If you didn't want to be running fire, you could do dark magic, or, you could grab one of the cryo ones, because everybody loves cryo on Amara. Gotta love that cryo on Amara. Now, we did not take Sever the Thread, as the shotgun we are using does not trigger this. It does not count as a gun critical hit. So there is no reason to use this. But we did take that 3 out of 3 in double knot, like I said, and you do get a bunch of extra damage on your gun from imbued weapon with your spell. So, finally, taking a quick look at the hero points, maxing out our crit damage with 48 out of 48, 30 out of 40 here to really get our crit chance quite high, intelligence for some extra cooldown, 30 of 37, didn't touch wisdom, didn't touch con, put a few points over here into attunement, 33 out of 43, get that Storm Dragon's Judgment back just a little bit faster. And that is it for the build. So folks, I hope you enjoy this one. It's Amara, she's back, she's amazing, she's tons of fun. Go crazy. I cannot wait to see you guys when I'm over on Twitch playing live. We are having some great times over there, folks. So until then, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, say something to me down there. Fight me about it. I don't know. But until the next time, happy gaming.